And Coach, before we get into the Heat and the Celtics, which we certainly want to talk about, I know I mentioned Chris Paul, and right now he is sort of the topic of conversation, which is he washed up? How much did he let down his team? Are we giving him too much credit at this point in his career based on everything that he's accomplished? What is your take?
Well, in Game 6 against the Pelicans, I think he went 14 to 14 from the field. In Games 1 and 2, both wins for Phoenix, he was terrific. And then he fell off a cliff. And I speculated, I think I even tweeted, what happened to him. And I believe word came out yesterday he had a quad injury. He gets hurt a lot at the end of the year. They play him too much. I'm working on an article probably in the next couple of weeks where I kind of project out the Suns' future. And they should just limit him to 20, 22 minutes a game during the regular season, 50 games maximum, some kind of working number so that he's healthy all through a postseason run. But this is what happens when you're 37 and you play as much as he does at as many important games. Something has to give. In this case, it was his quad. If they play him less minutes, I think he can play for a better way, more quality, longer. That's how you have to manage an old point guard.
Man, that sounds so depressing. An old point guard. God, it sounds like he's going to be put out to pasture in an upstate farm, for the rest of his life. But let's talk about the game we do have on the slate because it is a good one between the Heat and the Celtics. Situationally, I think it's a really tough spot for the Celtics having to come off a 7-game, very physical series against the Bucks and then having to go to Miami to play game 1. Do you think that matters here? Or do you think the momentum rolls on with the Celtics to South Beach?
I think it's a wash. I like a team that has to get through the team that gets through the tougher series previously. I think has an advantage in starting the next game with a higher level of intensity. That advantage that Boston gained from playing a much better Milwaukee team than what Miami faced in Philly is mitigated by the fact that they'll have played barely 48 hours prior. We're traveling the day after the Game 7 Milwaukee game. So I think it's a wash. And then you start looking at who's not playing. Marcus Smart, we don't know if he's going to play. Kyle Lowry's definitely out. It seems like Robert Williams, the Time Lord, is in. No one knows for sure, but it looks like that's what's going to happen. And that's a benefit for Boston. But there's no question that I think Boston would have an advantage if they had another day of rest like we have in the West, but that's not the case.
Talking with David Thorpe, Executive Director of the Pro Training Center in Clearwater, Florida. He's also on Twitter at Coach Thorpe, a great follow there. Coach, is Jimmy Butler capable of taking over a series like this one, where he certainly had that marquee performance in that final game against the Sixers in that series, but can he do the same against the Celtics club? Just much like Miami plays great team defense.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's a two-way player, an elite on both ends, shooting it really well from three, which is not what he was doing during the regular season. I think he's at 23% in the season. He's like at 37% now in the postseason, which is big. He's also a playmaker. He's one of those guys that doesn't have to shoot great to will his team to a win. He does so many other things. Clearly the leader of that franchise. And listen, Giannis blitzed the Celtics. He did not shoot well from three, but he put up huge, staggering numbers. Boston did not solve Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Giannis is better than Butler, but as good as Boston is defensively and as many weapons they have on that side of the ball, on that side of the court, I don't know that they're going to have an answer for Jimmy. It's going to be more of a question of who else from Miami plays well, because I think we can project Butler is going to be a very good player in the series.
That's the problem trying to predict these games is the Heat are so deep and they use that rotation that it's hard for us to predict who's going to have a big game. And I know the Celtics are probably going to be keying in on Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, but the Heat have a ton of shooters who, if they're hot, Duncan Robinson can go off for 20, Tyler Hero can go off for 20, and even Max Strus has been big. So looking at the Heat tonight, do you think there are any players on that roster who are due for a big game?
No, I wouldn't look at it that way. Miami was the best shooting team in the regular season, but they have not. I think they were 37% in the regular season. They're like at 32% in the postseason. And Boston does a very good job of getting out and defending shooters, knowing, especially when they play two bigs, knowing they have another big behind them. So they'll have one guy out on the perimeter. They're not afraid to put Horford out there or Tice out there or Robert Williams, even Grant Williams. knowing there's another big guy waiting in return. I think the better question is, can someone from Miami do it? We know they have a bunch of guys because Boston is deep as well. I tweeted this the other day. The Celtics had a Horford game, a Brown game, a Tatum game, and that last game was a Grant Williams game. Like 4 different heroes in their 4 wins, and so that's 4 of their 5 starters. And Marcus Smart was their fifth starter. So I think Boston actually has an edge in quality depth. It doesn't mean they're going to win the series. Miami has home court advantage. I do think if every team was healthy starting on day one, and there was another day of rest, Boston's the better team. The fact that they could easily drop this first game because they just are coming off that series makes it a closer one to call.
David, of course, we have tomorrow night game 1 of the Western Conference Finals between the Mavericks and the Warriors, and everyone besides CP3. If you're not talking about Chris Paul, you're probably talking about Luka Doncic and what he did in that series. I don't know if any player, maybe outside of Giannis, has been as consistent in the postseason. If he gets help, and you never know where it's going to come from on that Mavs team, if he gets the help that he got in that series, can the Mavericks actually beat the Warriors?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt of that. Luka's LeBron James in our present format. He's capable of beating you from everywhere. Whereas as good as Giannis is, he's simply not going to beat you from the perimeter. He's just going to beat you in other ways. Luka can beat you from everywhere, offensively anyway. LeBron had defensive chops that Luka doesn't quite have yet, maybe never will have. He is that kind of confident. I've watched a lot of tape on that series. The Warriors have a lot of guys that will guard him. The problem is Luka is very good with his step backs, kind of the way Harden has been in the past, but back in his prime. Luka showed against Phoenix what he can do, getting shots off over anyone. Golden State can try to get him to turn the ball over a lot. Golden State's good at that. Luka had 25 turnovers his first 5 games against Phoenix. He only had 3 combined in the last 2 games, both Dallas wins. And so I think that's going to be an area of focus for Golden State is how can they bother Luka, disrupt his rhythm, his timing, force him into tough passes, get him careless. It's going to be their challenges to get Luka to be more of a mortal player, but that is no easy task.
All right, David, I'll ask you a simple question that probably does not have a simple answer. Who do you think wins it all?
I think Boston's my favorite right now. Yeah, I think that I made that decision about a month and a half ago when I started seeing that the way they were playing with the lineups they were playing, I thought they had enough size to defend Phoenix's wings. That's what I thought would be in the finals. Obviously, that's not the case now. But I still feel the same way. I still think Boston's the best team with Brown and Tatum are elite offensive players that also really get after you on defense. With the defensive player of the year at the point position if he gets healthy, and then the 3 quality bigs they rotate, and the way Grant Williams is playing on both ends, it is not going to be easy to get by Miami. That's going to be a 6 or 7 game series. But I still think I give Boston an edge right now as the best team in the league.
Coach, before we let you go, how much we know coaching matters. There's no question about that. But how much does it matter here when you have elite talent on the floor? And I don't think it's a coincidence either that we have 4 of the best coaches in the game, and certainly 3. This is new to Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka as well. But you do have a lot of talented coaches who are also heading up these operations as well.
I think it makes a huge difference. And in Kidd's case, I thought he was terrible when he was in Milwaukee, but there's no arguing what he's done in Dallas. The way they defend all year. Well, since January, I've been writing about the way they're defending. That's a sign of coaching, not just getting guys to buy in, but coming up with a strategy and then teaching that strategy so the players can execute. Those guys, we call it playing on a string defensively. Everyone's attached. They're moving in a coordinated fashion. And he's got those guys believing. It helps to have Luka, but he can't do it by himself. And we're seeing other guys play well. Coaching that's who comes up with the strategy, the implementation, the adjustments that have to happen in each game as well as in between games. Kidd has improved a lot. To me, Ime was the coach of the year, and Spoelstra is considered now the best coach in the game. And Steve Kerr's right there with him.
You can read his work at TrueHoop.com. He has coached more than 75 NBA players over the last 30 years. David, this is your last appearance on this show, but you've always been a wonderful guest and provided just such great insight. It's one of those times when I have to remember I'm on a radio show and I can't just sit back and listen. So thanks for being with us and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Be safe, everyone.